Morning. Good morning and welcome to the Sunday morning service from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. My name is Pamela Flodman and I will be serving as your worship associate today. For today's service, we have members and friends and guests who have gathered in person here at the Fellowship Building in Laguna Beach, as well as others who are joining us from remote locations today by Zoom. Every week, I find that I am amazed and humbled by the group of people who work together to make it possible to hold a hybrid worship service each week. My deep gratitude goes to Don West Jr., who is serving as our Zoom tech, and Paul Bogdan as our audiovisual tech here in the Fellowship Building. And also to Kendra Roman, who helped to arrange today's service, which is no small task, if anyone was wondering. Rachel Daniels, who prepares the posts, the e-blasts that go out for the service, and Cindy Williams, who posts the service announcements to our Facebook page. Candy and Paul have also been here since early this morning to prepare the worship space, make sure we have coffee and refreshments for after the service. This is a community that cares, and a community that pitches in whenever help is needed. So welcome to all. It is good to be together in all of the ways that we can join together in worship. This morning, we welcome Jennifer Springsteen as our guest speaker. Jennifer is a seminary student at Starr King School for the ministry in Oakland. She is the co-founder of PDX Writers, and she is an award-winning writer, having won several awards from the Regional Arts and Culture Council, an Oregon Literary Arts Fellowship, and 2 Pushcart Prize nominations. She writes, teaches, studies, and raises a family in Portland, Oregon. And we are delighted, Jennifer, that you have joined us today by Zoom for worship. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith. Jennifer will be leading our chalice lighting this morning by Zoom. And if you are also joining us by Zoom, I invite you to light a chalice within your home while I light the chalice here at UUFLB.
Morning. I'd like to share with you the Starr King School for the Ministry's chalice lighting words. With the kindling of this flame, we reaffirm our commitment to accept life's gifts with grace and gratitude and use them to bless the world in the spirit of love.
Joining us at UUFLB. And thank you, Jennifer, for lighting our chalice. I'm a portion. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, no matter age, gender, your ancestral or ethnic background, your economic or immigration status, whatever sincere questions you bring with you today, welcome to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral people. Our fellowship meets every Sunday morning for worship, including a social justice service the 4th Sunday of each month, as well as services led by and by our own members. So be on the lookout for the email of each service and other events. This morning, our service is entitled Over My Head. As our guest speaker today, Jennifer is inviting us to consider how the divine enters worship through music and our faith tradition's keys to unlocking the spirit. I have always known that I was incredibly lucky as a child to be introduced early and often to the power of music. Music has a deep power over me, and it has always been part of my life. Whether I am listening to others create music or joining in the creation myself. So today, as we begin our reflection on the power of music to unlock our spirits, please join me in reading our centering thought for today. Dawn will bring the words up on the screen, and I invite you to join me in reading and reflecting on these words, written by sociologist Bertice Berry. Music does more than soothe the soul. It brings balance to the mind, body, and spirit.
Thank you again for including me in your worship this morning. I'm glad to be here. Our opening reading comes from the Indian mystic and poet Kabir Das, and it's translated by Robert Bly. The flute of interior time is played whether we hear it or not. What we mean by love is its sound coming in. When love hits the farthest edge of excess, it reaches a wisdom. And the fragrance of that knowledge, it penetrates our thick bodies. It goes through walls. Its network of notes has a structure as if a million suns were arranged inside. This tune has truth in it. Where else have you heard a sound like this? Come and let us worship together.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 30, Over My Head. We invite those of you who are attending by Zoom to sing out from home, even though you are muted. And here in the fellowship building, please join in creating music together by humming or singing the words. Number 30 in the gray hymnal. Please enjoy the music of our amazing and talented music director, Carole, and please sing along with the words of number 30, Over My Head.
Good morning, everyone. Please join me. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must
Let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read these words together when and if it feels right for you. And I invite you to listen and reflect on the words as you read them. If you wish, please unmute your microphone. It's powerful when we join our voices together here in the fellowship and when we join our voices together by Zoom. The words of the unison affirmation will be on your screens. So please join together with me in reading. May we
be reminded
Reminded
here
here
of our highest
highest
aspirations
and
and inspired to bring our gifts of love
and service to
to
the
the
altar
altar of
of
humanity.
humanity.
May
May
we
we
know
know once again
that we are not
not
isolated beings,
beings,
but connected
connected in
in
mystery
mystery and
and
miracle
miracle
to the
to the
to the
universe,
universe, to
to
this
this
community,
community, and to
and
each
to
other.
each other.
Our reading today is Some Call It God by Jabbar Yassim. I choose rhythm. The beginning is motion. Black funk shaping itself in the time before time. Dark, glorious, and nimble as sperm. Sparkling its way into the greatest of grooves, conjuring worlds from dust and storm and primordial soup. I accept the funk as my holy savior. Funk so high you can't get over it, so wide you can't get around it. Ubiquitous funk that envelops all creatures great and small, quickens the nerve endings and the white hot hearts of stars. I believe in rhythm rippling each feather on a sparrow's back, the glittering in every grain of sand. I am faithful to funk as irresistible twitch, heart skip, backbone slip, the whole funk and nothing but the funk, sliding electrically into exuberant noise. I hear the cosmos swinging in the startled whines of newborns, the husky blare of tenor horns, lambs bleating and lions roaring, a fanfare of tambourines and glory. This is what I know. Rhythm resounds as a blessing of the body, the wonder and hurt of being, a wet delight of a tongue on a thigh, fear itching icily along the spine, the sudden surging urge to holler, the twinge that tells your knees it's going to rain, the throb of centuries behind and before us. I embrace rhythm as color and chorus, the bright orange of connection, the mahogany lure of succulent loins, the black and tan rhapsody of our clasping hands. I whirl to the beat of the omniscient diastole, systole, automatic, borderless, bigger and bigger still, bigger than love, bigger than desire or adoration, bigger than begging and contemplation, bigger than wailing and chanting and the slit throats of roosters for which praise is useless, for which gratitude might as well be whispered, for which motion is meaning enough. Funk lives in us, begetting light as bright as music, unfolding into dear lovely day and bushes ablaze in rhythm until it begins again.
We have come to the time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. This fellowship is a supportive, caring community where our sorrows can be shared and by sharing them can be lessened. and where our joys can be amplified. During this time of sharing our joys and our concerns, we will pause the recording of the service. Resume our recording as we move into our offeratory section. It is as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. In this self-governing, self-sustaining community, we recognize it as our responsibility to do both and to do both well. So during the time of offering, we will be passing a basket within the fellowship, and the information on your screen provides additional ways in which you can give. Our fellowship depends on the love and generous contribution from our members and our friends, contributions which empower us to do the good work of the fellowship within Laguna Beach and within the world. Please now join us here in the fellowship. Stand if you're comfortable to do so as we form a circle that is well spaced. And as we sing to each other our words of gratitude, from you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Now, please sit comfortably in your chair. Place your feet on the ground. Let your hands rest quietly in your lap and feel your body relax as you follow your breath in and out. In and out. We will have a short time of silent meditation, which will be followed by meditative music from Carole.
Music has always pulled at my heart like a quivering compass needle angling towards some divine truth. Music doesn't stay only in the head. It ruptures through instruments, haunts the air. It vibrates our skin, our largest organ. It muscles its way into our muscles, causing lightness and lift, including and most especially the beating of our heart. Music is worship with the bell notes of tambourines. I want to feel God through the piano, peeling out of the hammer and pins into the delicate petals of my own ears. I want it to drum inside my heart, to shake me to my core. I want that emotion to rock me. And I know I'm not alone in this. When asked to speak to his poem, Asim wrote, "In working towards a constructed description of my idea of the divine, I'm embracing the notion of God as funk, an irresistible impulse to drop everything and move." He goes on to say, "I can think of few experiences holier than responding to rhythm, whether it's coming from the beat of a drum or a church matron humming her favorite hymn." Did you know that UUs are included with Protestants in that unkind name calling, God's frozen people? Ouch. Perhaps it's our Puritan roots. There was indeed a 1644 ordinance against organs and elaborate music in churches because they were disliked by the Puritans. Perhaps that accounts for our seeming stiffness. Now, I don't think we need to become ecstatic dancers, but our UU hymnal says you got to do when the Spirit says do, right? You've got to sing, you've got to dance when the Spirit says to sing and dance. The Spirit sometimes bypasses our heads and goes right to our throat and our hips. Let our bodies pay attention for a change. And I'm not sure if you feel this way, but for me, when the orders came to shelter in place, it felt as if a great silence fell over the world. A silence like a blanket of snow, both mysterious and stifling, haunting and hallowed. And like after a fresh snow, we looked out our window and contemplated our existence in this new quiet. Choirs stopped singing, bands stopped playing, concerts were canceled. We stilled and breathed deeply. We listened to the music that we'd often overlooked: bird song, the leg song of crickets, wind rubbing tree branches. Eventually, human voices found a way to re-enter. Voices learned to harmonize through internet cables. YouTube and Zoom and FaceTime lit up with musicians playing for one another, for us. And after the killing of George Floyd, when so many people could no longer stay quiet about systemic racism and a culture of white supremacy, artists used their craft to shape the protest. Lil Baby's The Bigger Picture, Leon Bridges' Sweeter. New York Times Philharmonic clarinetist Anthony McGill played a discordant America the Beautiful. Have you seen this? He leaves the last note hanging, haunting, the story of America incomplete. And then he puts his hands behind his back, kneels and bows, inviting other musicians to do the same. He says it's a sign of prayer, of vulnerability, of peaceful protest. In a way, it's a sign of surrender to the situation that we are in, that we are on our knees praying people will pay attention to this. There is an intentionality to the interpretation of music, and that intentionality is inspired. Music connects us to the stories of our time and also to the stories of our ancestors. My Appalachian ancestors are a proud, yodeling, calling out, guffawing, and old-time praying, shouting, and singing bunch. That's a lyric from Edgar Pace's Old Camp Meeting Days, one of his 4,000 Southern gospel songs. Isn't that the Spirit speaking through him and through the music? My favorite version is sung by Doc Watson, and I love the Trinity-filled verses of Walking Through Jerusalem Just Like John, most wonderfully crooned by Bill Monroe. Of course, both those songs appear in hymns long before I heard them in concerts and in my living room, picked by the seldom seen. On a trip to Tennessee in the early 90s, I dug around in the library at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and found so many old recordings of gospel. I remember sitting at a small table with borrowed headphones, my chest swelling, feet jumping, and tears wetting my cheeks. I no longer considered myself Christian then, but I figured if anyone might, it'd be those crooning folks who'd lure me back with the pull of a fiddle, 3-string banjo, the yip and whine of their aching voices. Divining rods, my ancestors. Lord, it gets me close. And the experience of music at the Black Baptist churches I've attended is physical, ritual, full-throated. At Eddie Christmas's church in Farmville, Virginia, there were instruments to grab in the narthex of the church, and people brought their own, or you could just walk into the sanctuary clapping. People greeted one another outside church because once inside, with the organ and the guitars and the choir, the focus was on connecting with the Spirit. You were embodied with God beside your neighbor, many vessels for the Spirit to enter and awake. And while I loved all of that, the message wasn't one that I could always connect with, and not the way that I connect with the prayers, poems, and sermons in our Unitarian Universalist church. I wish I could find harmony with the two. I was recently gifted with a notebook of sermons from Reverend Marilyn Sewell, who is retired. She too thought that people in our churches were worshiping from the neck up, and said in one sermon, people want to express their faith through their whole being. They want that ecstatic expression and release. They want to be filled with the fire of the Spirit. She says, I can understand that. I wish we could be freer in our UU churches, freer to move, freer to say amen if we felt like it, freer to worship with our bodies as well as our minds. I'm not ready for the rattlesnakes yet, but we need to loosen up. Indeed. And I'm sure I'm just beating the point by including a quote from the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, who said that too often God is more abstract and less personal, more a symbol and less a felt presence, more in our heads than in our hearts. And he goes on to ask, what is God really? And then answers, the unfathomable and ineffable, that is as close as your next heartbeat. And I just want to say that again, the unfathomable and ineffable, that is as close as your next heartbeat. I say the rhythm of God's love is always beating in our bodies. Yes, it's out there in the frog song. It's in the streets with the songs of protest. It's in the belly of the cello on the stage in a concert hall. But when the world quiets and there is just you and your own blessed body, there it is, the connection for you alone to experience. Remember those first records or cassettes or CDs that you had? I guess it would be iTunes now, right? I remember sitting on the floor in my room with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, that first excited shake of the wrist, dropping the needle onto the vinyl, and laying on the floor with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening to the chaotic beauty of the last song, Eclipse, those final lyrics, women's voices high like siren song, all that is now, all that is gone, all that's to come, and everything under the sun is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon. I remember I sat up and flipped the album over and started all over again. And I'm sure many of you have had similar recollections with music as a young person, how it just got under your skin like that. I'm suggesting that whether the songs are in protest or praise, in lullaby or love song, the spirit can be known in our bodies when we quiet our minds and let music roll over and through us. I'm suggesting that that shiver that one feels, the words caught behind the teeth, the pinch of tears in our eyes, is God. And we can certainly cast off the moniker of God's frozen people. We have two wonderful hymn books, Singing the Living Tradition and Singing the Journey, or the Teal Hymn Book, we sometimes call it. There is the divine in these pages. I still have difficulty singing Spirit of Life without crying. Our congregation used to sing Sleep, My Child as the children left for their classrooms. That beautiful lullaby repetition of all through the night gives a rise in the chest. But then we sing that song again when migrant children were first being separated from their parents at the US borders. Writing this song in 1930, Alicia Carpenter could have no idea that the emotional impact of her lyrics shifted some 80 years later. Using the music in our hymnal that way exercises clever intentionality, inciting worshipers with longing and a need to care beyond our own children. No longer only a lullaby, now a call to justice. It reminds me of McGill's intentionality when he played America the Beautiful. It shows us what still needs attention. And I love to imagine those 6 years of the gathering of the 1987 Hymn Book Resources Commission, which gave us our current gray hymnal. They sing through the 1964 hymn book 3 times before they sought new material that reflected what the denomination was becoming: multicultural, ecologically aware, more feminine, more inclusive. But it moves me deeply to consider the divine joining the commission as their hearts rose to sing a song. Perhaps find a stillness, hold a stillness, let a stillness carry me, again and again. And then I loved the story of the chair, Mark Bellantini, meeting with the 1964 commission chair, Arthur Foote. And because Foote could no longer read, he was blind, Bellantini sang all the new hymns out loud to him, and how they both wept. What a beloved hour that must have been. I don't know what we can expect from a new hymnal. Most likely there won't be another paper hymnal or printed text hymnal. Perhaps something downloadable, something streamable. It's exciting to consider that musicians right now might be tinkering with words that will become our choral assemblage. Songs that bemoan the coronavirus, like One Republic's Better Days, or that embody the Black Lives Matter, like Usher's I Cry. Or maybe it'll reach back in time and find songs that were overlooked 20, 50, 100 years ago. Maybe the combination of all those songs become our next revivals. As the poet Kabir said, music penetrates our thick bodies, it goes through walls, and this tune has truth in it. The tune holds truth in your body and mine. Whether we lie still and let the music wash over us and lick clean our muscles and joints, or whether we rise and let the tune bounce our bones, the truth of the music is that it binds us with the stories told over and over again. It connects us to the rhythms of the earth, to the heart rhythms of everything alive, everything divine that we want to feel connected to, and stay connected. The message I hear so often now, one that rises again from the ashes of Auschwitz, from the civil rights movement, to those dying alone of coronavirus, those murdered by the police. Don't turn away, tune in. Isn't that what we mean by being in tune? In tune with nature, with our loved ones, with justice, with God. The poet, musician, and composer Sun Ra wrote in his poem, "Music is a plane of wisdom because music is a universal language. It is a language of honor. It is a noble precept, the gift of the airy kingdom. Music is air, a universal existence common to all things living." We have all the music we could ever want on our computers and also in our bodies. There is God in music, I say. Let us rise and sway and chant. Let us quiet and listen deeply. Let us shimmy our shoulders and shout and give thanks to this precious gift from the airy kingdom. Will you pray with me? God of many names and of no name, sweet spirit in the throats of birds, we find ourselves again in times of grief and worry. We long to walk with courage and strength and health. We long to be resonant with the struggling earth, with the struggles of our human family. God, we need you close. Please find us now with our hearts open, aching to hear your love and the art of melody. May it be so, and amen. Please join us. Please join Carole in our closing hymn. If you want to follow, it's number 1024, Spirit Says Do.
Now it's time to have a little fun. We love this song. Please join me. You gotta do and the Spirit says do. You gotta do and the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do and the Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says
hear us clapping here in the fellowship, but I could see people dancing in their seats while we were singing Spirit. Now is the time for us to extinguish our chalice here at the fellowship and within our homes. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, there is a divine rhythm thrumming in us, outside us, between us. Don't turn away from that ready love. Go in peace, practice love, and amen.